7 silent ways to make your avoidant ex regret losing you. There's something deeply confusing about losing an avoidant partner, not because the relationship was always healthy or emotionally fulfilling, but because avoidants often leave without fully explaining what happened emotionally inside them. One moment they seem connected, affectionate, and emotionally present, and the next moment they become distant, cold, and emotionally unavailable without warning. This sudden shift leaves many people obsessing over one painful question: how do I make them realize what they lost? And most people respond the wrong way. They chase harder, explain more, send emotional messages, or try to prove their value. But here's the truth about avoidant people that most never understand. The more pressure they feel emotionally, the more they emotionally shut down. Desperation does not create attraction for an avoidant person. Silence, growth, emotional stability, and self-respect create emotional tension inside them. Because avoidants often don't process loss immediately. At first, distance feels relieving to them. It feels like freedom, space, and emotional control. But over time, something begins to change quietly inside them, especially when they notice that you are no longer emotionally chasing them. That's when curiosity slowly replaces certainty, and that's when regret can begin to appear. So here are 7 silent ways to make your avoidant ex regret losing you without begging, forcing, or losing your dignity in the process. Number 1, stop explaining yourself repeatedly. One of the biggest mistakes people make after losing an avoidant partner is over-explaining their emotions. They send long paragraphs trying to finally make the avoidant understand the pain they caused. But avoidants already know you are hurt. The issue is not lack of information. The issue is emotional avoidance itself. Every extra explanation often creates more emotional pressure for them, and pressure makes avoidance emotionally retreat even further. But when you suddenly stop over-explaining yourself, something unexpected happens. The emotional noise disappears, and silence creates space for reflection. Your absence begins speaking louder than your emotional arguments ever did. They start noticing the silence where your emotional energy once existed. And for the first time, they are left alone with their own thoughts instead of your reactions. That silence becomes psychologically uncomfortable for them. Number 2, become emotionally unpredictable in a healthy way. Avoidants often become emotionally comfortable when they think they fully understand your reactions. They expect you to wait, chase, respond quickly, and remain emotionally available no matter what they do. But when your behavior changes calmly and confidently, it disrupts their emotional expectations. This does not mean playing toxic games or pretending not to care. It means genuinely reclaiming your emotional independence. You stop centering your entire emotional world around them. You become less emotionally reactive and more emotionally grounded. And suddenly, they can no longer predict your emotional availability. That uncertainty creates curiosity inside avoidance because they are used to emotional control. The moment they feel your emotional energy shifting away from them, they begin paying attention again. Number 3, improve your life quietly without performing for them. Nothing creates regret faster than seeing someone emotionally evolve without needing validation. Many people try too hard to appear happy after a breakup. They force fake confidence online hoping their ex notices it. But avoidance can often sense performative behavior very quickly. Real growth feels different. It feels calm, grounded, and natural. You begin focusing on your health, confidence, purpose, friendships, and emotional healing. Not to make them jealous, but because your life genuinely matters again. And over time, your avoidant ex notices something strange. You no longer seem emotionally dependent on their attention for happiness. That realization quietly unsettles them, because avoidants often expect former partners to remain emotionally attached for a very long time. When you stop revolving around them emotionally, their sense of certainty begins collapsing. Number 4, stop giving them easy emotional access to you. Many avoidants want emotional distance while still keeping access to your emotional energy. They may breadcrumb you occasionally with random texts, casual check-ins, or confusing mixed signals. Not always because they want reconciliation immediately. Sometimes they simply want reassurance that you are still emotionally available to them. But the moment you stop giving instant emotional access, everything changes psychologically. You stop responding instantly to every message. You stop emotionally overinvesting in tiny moments of attention. You stop rewarding inconsistency with emotional availability. And this creates emotional contrast inside them. For the first time, they experience what life feels like without guaranteed access to your emotional support. That emotional absence becomes more noticeable over time than your presence ever was. Number 5, become calm instead of reactive. Avoidants are often deeply uncomfortable with intense emotional confrontation. When every interaction becomes emotional chaos, they mentally associate the relationship with pressure and exhaustion. But emotional calmness creates a completely different psychological effect. When you become calm, centered, and emotionally controlled, you stop feeding emotional drama. You no longer argue endlessly trying to force understanding. You no longer chase validation through emotional intensity. And that emotional stability becomes surprisingly powerful. Because calmness signals emotional strength, it shows that you are no longer emotionally controlled by their behavior. And avoidants secretly respect emotional self-control far more than emotional chasing. Over time, they start comparing your current calmness to the emotional intensity they expected from you, and the difference becomes impossible for them to ignore. Number 6, build a life that feels full without them. One of the deepest fears avoidants rarely admit is becoming emotionally replaceable themselves. They often assume former partners will remain emotionally attached long after the relationship ends. But when they see you genuinely reconnecting with your own life, something shifts inside them. You begin creating meaning outside the relationship again. You reconnect with passions, routines, goals, creativity, and people who make you feel alive. Your energy slowly stops carrying the emotional heaviness of loss. And ironically, this is often when avoidants begin emotionally revisiting the relationship. Because your independence removes the emotional safety net they unconsciously relied on. Now they are forced to confront the possibility that your life may continue beautifully without them. That realization creates emotional discomfort they cannot easily escape. Number 7, let time and silence do the work. This is the hardest step for most people because it requires patience instead of control. After heartbreak, people want immediate answers, immediate closure, and immediate reassurance. But avoidants often process emotions very slowly and indirectly. At first, they suppress emotions through distraction, work, routines, or emotional numbness. But silence has a strange way of catching up with avoidance over time, especially when the person they expected to chase them disappears emotionally. Eventually, memories begin resurfacing quietly. Not just the problems in the relationship, but also your emotional presence, support, warmth, and consistency. And because you are no longer there emotionally trying to convince them of your value, they begin realizing it on their own. That is the irony of avoidant psychology. The less you force realization, the more likely realization becomes. But here is the most important truth of all. These silent behaviors should not be used as manipulation tactics. They should be used to reclaim your emotional power and self-respect. Because the real goal is not obsessing over whether your avoidant ex regrets losing you. The real goal is becoming someone who no longer abandons themselves while trying to be loved by emotionally unavailable people. And sometimes, something unexpected happens during that process. You stop focusing on making them regret losing you because you finally realize your greatest loss was abandoning yourself for someone who could not fully meet you emotionally. And once you truly understand that, you become the one who finally lets go emotionally.